Welcome. Bienvenidos a Yaprendí Radio. Welcome to Yaprendí Radio. I'm so excited to finally be doing this. And yeah, we're going to get into a lot of fun stuff today in episode one. So let's jump right in, shall we? Episode one, episodio uno, es titulado Ya aprendí contar mi historia. I've now learned to tell my story. And I'm going to be talking about why I started this podcast, what you can expect in the episodes that I will be dropping weekly. And yeah, we're just going to get into a little bit of background information so you get to know me, Christina, your host, a little bit better as we go along and build this thing out. So let's jump right in. Let's get right into it. What is Ya Aprendí Radio? Let's start there. So yeah, Ya Aprendí Radio. This is a bilingual podcast and a storytelling space where language, identity, and culture collide. This is a podcast hosted by me, Cristina. My name is Christina. I'm a bilingual educator. I primarily teach Spanish, and I consider myself a bilingual vibe curator. This is my most recent title I've given myself because it is how I view myself. I'm all about the good vibes and cross-cultural connections. So I think a bilingual vibe curator sounds fitting, right? Reinvent yourself as often as you need to. Life advice that never fails me. Um, but I digress. This is where we break down language barriers, okay? We celebrate the diaspora and we learn through soul, rhythm, and real talk. So we're not only learning Spanish and English lessons here. I want to create a space where we acknowledge our soul, and we feel seen in a world that is constantly trying to tell us how we should be viewing ourselves. This is a space where we learn to accept ourselves exactly how we are. Um, yeah. So with that being said, you can expect in this space a mix of personal stories, mindset gems, bilingual conversations, short lessons, and reflections on what it means to be seen, heard, and connected across cultures. This is what Yaprendí Radio is for, okay? So, es un podcast bilingüe. A veces voy a hablar en español, a veces voy a hablar en inglés. Durante las lecciones que doy, siempre va a haber una mezcla. So it'll always be a mix. This episode, to be honest, will primarily be in English, um, but there will be episodes where I'll speak more in Spanish. So it'll just depend on what the topic is. Because this one is about why I started Japanendi and actually sharing more about myself and my background, I'm going to speak in the language that I feel most comfortable expressing myself in, which is English. Um, so yeah, let's get into it. All right, so ya aprendí contar mi historia. We're gonna talk about, let's talk about why ya aprendí, why I came up with the name first. And then we're gonna talk about my background. We'll talk about my story. Okay, so I came up with the name ya aprendí when 2022, when I was having kind of like a crisis de identidad. I was like, what am I doing with my life? I don't know if I'm really where I'm supposed to be. Like, what more could I be doing with what I've done thus far? Ultimately, I decided to explore my creativity. A friend got me this book. I had to have gotten this. I got this in like 2019. So this is how long I've had this book. And I'm doing it, I'm going through it again, but the artist way. If you know about Dolce, you know. So basically I was thinking to myself, like, what more could I do with this Spanish? Because I love teaching it. I think it's such a beautiful thing. And it's powerful that I've learned this language to the point where I'm at a level that I can even teach native Spanish speakers, reglas de gramática, like grammar rules. I thought it was really cool. And my approach to teaching native speakers was always very careful. Like, I don't want you to think that I'm telling you how to speak your language. I'm just sharing what I've learned that you might not be aware of that could actually be cool. So I started Yaprendí After teaching high school for over 5 years, it was like 7 years at this point. I had taught 2 years at a private school and then 5 years in the Bronx. I'll get into that in a minute. I'm going to give you my story in a second, but I'm just telling you how I started Yaprendí first. So yeah, it was like after the pandemic, I was trying to figure out what I was doing with my life. And then I was like, you know what? I can teach Spanish on the side. I was tutoring also during the whole pandemic. I was tutoring on the side. It was like a side hustle. And I was like, what more can I do with this? There's a lot of people that want to learn Spanish. There's something to be explored there. There's a lot of people like me with similar backgrounds as me that want to learn Spanish. Where can I take this? So I thought about the fact that I've learned a lot. And I was like, yo ya aprendí. Ya aprendí. I've already learned. Ya aprendí. Ya aprendí. Ya aprendí. That's kind of like how it was like a light bulb moment. I was like, that's a like cool, catchy name. And not only is it like I've learned, but it's also like prendí from prender. It's like I've ignited something, turned something on. So it's like you're fired up, right? So it's like double entendre. So I was like, yeah, that's my name. That's it. That's the one I'm rolling with. And I was telling everybody. People probably thought I was crazy. But I was like, yeah, this is my thing, and so I'm sticking with it. And then that was the same year I left the job that I had at the time, and decided to go all in with Japanendi. Now, where are we now? We're still growing because self-sabotage is a real thing, okay? I have blocked myself in a lot of ways, mentally because, trying to protect myself, we all do it. It's been a challenge to even allow myself to view myself the way that I want to, because of all the barriers that I was up against just growing up, you know. And so let me get into that. Let me get into my background. Now you know where Yaprendí comes from. Now I've learned. So with the lessons that I teach and the stories that I share, you can say, now I've learned. I've already learned that. Okay. Or now I'm fired up to learn some more, depending on how you want to look at it. Ya aprendí. Okay, so next I want to get into my story. Porque ya aprendí contar mi historia, right? I've already learned to tell my story, so let's get into it. So let's take it all the way back to where I was born. I was born in Macon, Georgia, of the US, okay? In the South. My parents are from Alabama originally. My mom's from Selma. Yeah, that's the dirty South. That's where I'm from. So if I get around my family or Southern people, it comes out more. But I live in New York and I've been here since 2017. So wherever I go, I'm heavily influenced by the way people speak and I adapt. It's a natural thing that I do. Not everybody does that, I've come to learn. But for me, it's like if I immerse myself in a place, I am highly impressionable in terms of the way that people speak. So I adapt in that way and I adopt certain things and it just comes out and I do it without even knowing. Like it's not even conscious for me. So I think this is part of why I've been able to learn Spanish the way that I have because I have that thing about me. But I digress. We're talking about my story. I was born in Macon, Georgia. Only lived there for 1 year of my life when I was born there because my dad got a job at a news station. He was a news reporter, and he got a job in San Antonio, Texas. So we moved there, and I went to preschool there, apparently. I don't remember this time of my life, so this is why a lot of things I'm gonna be like apparently. And apparently, my experience in preschool, I don't remember it, but there might have been some influence, según dicen, like according to what I've been told, um, from the Spanish-speaking people that I went to preschool with. I don't know. I have no recollection of that. This is just a theory, okay? Um, but I didn't start studying Spanish until I got into high school. So fast forward, we lived in Macon, then San Antonio, Texas, and then after preschool, we moved to Tennessee, and that's where I was raised, and that's what I consider home. So I grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee. There was three schools in the same vicinity. So there was Harrison Elementary, Central High School, and then there was no wait, Brown Middle, Harrison Elementary, Brown Middle, and Central High School. So they were like all in the same little. You go, you. It's just like they're all right next to each other. Anyway, when I was growing up, I think one of them has moved by now. So yeah, I didn't study Spanish until I got into high school. It wasn't even offered in elementary school. Middle school, I think we had Latin. I didn't take any languages in middle school. It was high school where I started studying Spanish. And I took Spanish 1 and 2 because that was all that was offered at Central. And yeah, Senor Sanchez. I'll never forget because he played this movie that I thought was like so cool because it was a black woman and she was learning how to dance. She was, I don't, if y'all know the name of this movie, I think it was Vanessa Williams that was in it. I gotta look this up because I'm just like, what was that movie? Where she had like a Cuban boyfriend and she was like dancing salsa and it was a cute movie and I was like inspired by that. So that's something significant from high school that stuck with me, but I didn't know I was gonna end up teaching Spanish. Hell, I didn't know I was gonna end up learning it like for real and much less teaching it, but it just kind of happened. Let me see. I have to find if this movie is called. Vanessa Williams in Salsa movie. Because I don't even remember the plot. I just remember it was like it was like a cute little storyline and she was dancing and I was like, that's sexy. I want to dance like that. It was called Dance with Me. That was definitely it. It was called Dance with Baila Conmigo. So we watched that in Senor Sanchez Spanish class in high school. And it was that moment I remember influencing me. And it was also a moment where Um, he had a former student come and talk to us about her experience studying abroad in Chile. And it was just so cool to think like, wow, you can get out of this bubble where we live. And at the time for me, especially, that was very impactful because I grew up in a very religious, strict household where it was like church, school, home, church, school, home. There wasn't really anything else. And my parents were very protective and so my friends circle, even with my friends at the church, it was like, you know, you got to be careful with the even like so like it was just always weird trying to build relationships without them being heavily monitored. And so that was very influential in the decisions I made to break free and see how life could be outside of that context. So yeah. So yeah, Baila Conmigo inspired me. And the girl who studied abroad in Chile who came to talk to us, that was inspirational. And then, but I tucked it away because I didn't think anything would come of it. This was high school. So then I got into college. I went to University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. And I had no idea what I was doing with my life, to be completely honest. I wanted to be a choreographer or I wanted to be a fashion designer, diseñadora de moda. Okay. These were the two things that I was like, these are the pathways. I'm an artist. Okay. I wanted to do something creative, but UTC, exploring those fields and then actually finding a lucrative career path felt it seemed non-existent, it seemed impossible, and I wasn't finding help that was directing me in a way where I could make that into a reality, where it seemed like a thing that was doable. So I had to get practical. This was what I was being told is that I had to get realistic. There were no resources to explore how to become a choreographer and then have a respectable career at it at that. Um, and not only that, but it's like there was still the whole thing of the religious thing, feeling like even dancing to secular music like that was a sin. So like it felt forbidden to even explore that path. So I was like, well, what am I good at? Spanish was what I was always good at. Like I had a knack for it. And so in college is when I finally said, okay, I guess I'll major in this. Um, and then I fell in love. I fell in love with the process of it. I fell in love with studying and learning about different Spanish speaking cultures, and just the phonetics and phonology was always fascinating to me. So I fell in love with learning language in college, and I eventually graduated with a bachelor's in Spanish language and literature. I started out undecided. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I majored in Spanish. And then I was like, what can I do with Spanish? Not really sure. I didn't think I wanted to be an educator. So I attempted to do a major in business administration. But I took an economics class, and the teacher made me hate it. And I was like, maybe this is not for me. So I was like, what else can I do? And I ended up um, doing a minor in communications, which was like almost a double major in Spanish and communications. So yeah, I majored in Spanish and minored in communications. That was the degree I ended up with. Um, I think I was at least cum laude, if not magna cum laude. I don't remember. It was one of them, the cums. And from there, I graduated, and oh, my senior year, I studied abroad. I lived with a host mother. So I graduated a little late because of this. I lived with a host mom in this town called Alcalá de Henares, Spain, and she spoke no English. And so I had to really learn how to communicate with her in Spanish. So we, I was there for a full academic year. I had to fight my parents to let me go because they were not trying to have me be over in a foreign country for over a year when I haven't even left the tri-state area. At this point, like I had never even been on a plane. My first time on a plane was to go to Spain. So this is give a little context, okay? My first time on a plane was to go study abroad in Spain. And yeah, I was determined to make it happen. So I wasn't accepting it no for an answer. And I was just telling them, like, I don't know what it's gonna take for y'all to get on board with it, but this is what I'm doing. And when I first told my mom, she laughed and she thought I was joking. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna study abroad in Spain for a year. She was like, ah, that was like, well, I don't know what it's gonna take for you to approve of it, but that's what I'm doing. So just get used to it. I'm gonna keep telling you. And so just thinking back, I was like, just thinking back to how bold I was, like I'm scared of me. Like, who was this person? But that was who I that's how I did it. My parents did not want me to go, and I definitely was just like, y'all are doing too much. And really, I think what was at the root of everything was like me just being fed up of feeling so restricted and not having any room to explore my identity and just even see, you know, the person that I was outside of their view of me, through that religious lens, because I just felt like there was so much more to life. And so, yeah, that was my experience studying abroad the first time. I lived with Carmen Moreno. She didn't speak any English. We spoke in Spanish all the time. She taught me a lot. We used to watch TV together. I would ask her about things. There's this show we used to watch, and it was called Pasapalabra. And it was like people had to, if I'm not mistaken, I think the premise of it, people had to guess like the word that was being described that started with a specific letter that was presented. And if they couldn't come up with it, they have to give it to the next person and be like, pasa palabra. It was really fun. And I didn't understand most of it, but sometimes I did. And in those moments, it was always just like so fulfilling. So I was like, yes, I'm starting to, like, this is possible. I'm starting to get the hang of this thing. So that was very impactful to have that time living with her for a full year and building that bond. Even like after that experience, I went back to see her. So let me explain. So I go back to the US to graduate, get my bachelor's in Spanish language and literature. And then my first job out, I was working at Starbucks. Was like, I need something that's more like, you know. So I got a bank job, like a job as a bank teller. Then my next job was Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee. So I worked as a consumer advisor. The consumer advisor, these are the people that they they look at your policy. You call in about a claim and you're like, why didn't y'all pay? Like you said you would pay for this thing. And the consumer advisor gets on the line with you and they're like, okay, well, you haven't met your deductible. You still have $5,600 to meet towards your deductible. Or, oh, you've met your deductible, but you still are responsible for 20% co-insurance. So this was the job that I had after graduating college. Um, and then I just started to feel like I'm being used like a puppet to deliver the bad news to these innocent people just trying to get taken care of, like for things that should be, provided to them for free just for being. Um, so I started just to feel wrong doing that job. And it didn't seem like it was going to go anywhere. Like I didn't feel connected to it and there was no passion. And so I was like, you know what? Maybe I should teach Spanish. What is it going to take? Because I don't have an education degree. Um, I majored in communication. Well, I majored in Spanish and minored in communications. What do you do with that? Like, what do you do with that? Um, and so I was like, if I get a master's, then maybe I can teach. And then, you know, that's what got me on the path to education. So I looked up programs for a master's degree and I found the one in St. Louis University. They have one in Spain. They have a campus in Madrid, Spain. So that's what I applied for and I got accepted. And this was summer or fall of 2013. So this is when I went back to Spain the second time, and I lived there for 2 years to get that master's degree in Spanish language and literature with a focus on linguistics, because I love the phonetics, the phonology, and the sounds and all of that. So I love the whole process of like the acquisition, and it's just fascinating to me. Um, and so that's how we got the that's how we got the master's. Went back to Spain. How did I afford it? Student loans, student loans. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. So yeah. So we went and got the master's and then we came back. My first teaching job, guess what? It was in Macon, Georgia, at a private school in Macon, Georgia, and I taught there for 2 years. And how I ended up in New York was that after the 2 years, this was around the first time that man got elected. Um, I'm not even gonna say his name, but it was just very obvious. The racism was very thick in the air in Macon, Georgia, especially during that time. And then when I was the only black teacher in the school, not to mention, it was like me and then this coach, which typical, like, I'm sorry, but okay, I was the only black teacher in the school. At the end of the day, all the black kids would come to my classroom and just to feel like they had a safe space. And that felt like a lot of responsibility. But I was glad to be there for them in that moment, but it didn't feel like um, a place that I could stay. I was like, this is not my life. Um, so that is after 2 years, that's when I was like, something's got to give. I'm not gonna be here and past this year. So 2015 to 20 summer 2017 is Macon, Georgia. And then I moved to New York. Okay. So how did I get the job in New York? I honestly never had an agenda to like, I'm determined to move to New York. It was never about New York. It was always about a place that felt more aligned. And so I was just putting my application, my resume out to everywhere, different places that I felt like I could see myself there. So I was sending in my resume out into places, to schools in California, Las Vegas, really anywhere that had a diverse population because I was looking for communities where they didn't seem so segregated. Um, and so yeah, New York was the place where I was getting calls. I was getting I had like five interviews, like five phone interviews. So I was like, okay, I guess this is the move. But wow, like this is scary because most people say like you can't really make it in New York. So I guess we're gonna see. And so we saw. So that'll be another episode where I'll get into how we made it. But basically, um, yeah, I got a my first job out here in the Bronx at a charter school. I I worked there for 5 years and I gained a lot of experience, learned a lot about education, learned a lot about myself and the world and how things work. And that was a game changer for me. And so I'm here now and I ended up in Brooklyn after the pandemic and a lot of stuff went down, but we'll talk more about we'll talk more about my journey from I was living in Spanish Harlem before, working in the Bronx, and then I moved to Brooklyn after the pandemic. Like year 2021 is when I moved here. And we'll talk more about that más adelante in the future. I'll do another episode on that. But yeah. So yeah, this is my story. This is how I got here. Um, and it's not even like I didn't try, like people wonder why I didn't go back home to like why didn't I stay where I came from? I actually tried to get a job in Chattanooga several times and I always got to like an interview stage and then it never went anywhere. Where was I? Macon, Georgia for 2 years, New York, the Bronx 5 years, and then 2022 I started Yaprendí Society on Instagram because things that were going on in my life forced me to figure out a way to see myself clearly because nobody was helping me. Nobody in my circle was helping me do that. Everybody was making me feel crazy. Everybody I surrounded myself with made me feel crazy. And so Yaprendí was a way for me to trust myself because that's what I needed to learn how to do. So you're going to hear more episodes around topics like that más adelante. But yeah, so that's my story. Esa es mi historia en breve, en pocas palabras. There's a lot more to it, obviously. I can't do it all in one episode, but this is just to give you a little bit more insight into the person that I am. You know, I'm a Black woman from the South. I speak Spanish and I embrace all sides of me. And I'm very open-minded to learning about people from different walks of life. I think that's what makes life beautiful. I've seen how when we keep ourselves in a box, how it can keep us stuck and how it can keep us stagnant and it, prevents us from being able to grow into who we are meant to grow into or we could potentially be, if we release the judgments we hold about ourselves and about others. And so I just want to shed light on those things, that's what I created this for, just to share my perspective, and hopefully help people become more open-minded and help us become more connected and just so that there's more love. That's the goal. Ultimately, it's all about love. My favorite book, Bell Hooks, if you know, you know. All right. That's all. Ya aprendí contar mi historia. That was my historia. The next episodio is going to be a lesson. So we'll alternate between like these kind of deep conversations, background conversations, or, you know, storytelling and lessons, like mini lecciones en español. So the next one will be that if you're looking more forward to uh, a lesson in Spanish or something like that. All right, that's all. Comment what you think, what you thought, what would you like to hear in a future episode, if you what you appreciated or what you were surprised to learn. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe, give me a like, do all the things, hit the bell, lo que sea. I'm still learning. But ayúdame, por favor, so I can keep doing this. And yeah, nos vemos la próxima vez. Hasta luego.